Welcome to the podcast, Badass Mother Hustler, where the grit, stress, and the beauty of motherhood and entrepreneurship meet. We'll share the realities and stories of what it takes to make it all work and still be a badass mother. Now here's your host, Maddie Yaka.
Welcome back to another episode, everyone. Today, I am chatting with Badass Mother Hustler, Amalia May Valle, and she is the mother of a 7-year-old girl and the host of the YouTube channel Busy and Healthy, and also a certified health coach. Welcome.
Thank you. It's so great to be here.
I'm so excited to chat with you today. You have a great story, and I can't wait to hear all about how you balance both a YouTube channel, being a flight attendant, and being a certified health coach.
It's a lot on your plate. It's a lot, I won't lie.
So why don't you tell everyone a little bit about yourself, like where you're from, what your hobbies are, stuff like that.
Sure. So I grew up in Miami, which is also where I currently live. I lived for a while in New York. I'm a certified yoga instructor and health coach. And as you said, I'm also a part-time flight attendant. So it all came together in a strange way.
Yeah.
The yoga started out, so I lived in New York for many years. I moved there right after I finished school to be an actor. And I'm still an actor, a bit less active than I used to be, but it started out, all actors need day jobs. I was waiting tables originally, the quintessential actor day job. As you can imagine, it wasn't always fun. And so I started doing yoga just to relieve some stress. And, at that time I was not really into working out, but it was some sort of exercise. So I figured, okay, it's stress relief and some kind of exercise. Great. And I just really fell in love with it. It really did help my stress a lot. And I just got further and further into that world. And then I ended up getting certified as a yoga instructor. I did my 200-hour certification training, and then I went back and I did my 500-hour. So it's kind of like, it's a lot of hours. It's like a graduate school for yoga teachers. And, you learn a lot when you do the higher level of yoga certification. At least in my training, you also start to learn a lot about nutrition and, holistic wellness. And I just really fell in love with it. Although I will say, honestly, at that time, as a late 20-something-year-old, I was really not paying a lot of attention to my health other than just, oh, this is nice,
Isn't that the story of every 20-year-old in their 20s?
Absolutely. So fast forward, my husband and I were interested in having a child years later, and I was not getting pregnant. And I was in my early 30s. So I was like, why am I not getting pregnant? And I did all the tests and it showed that I was fertile. There shouldn't be any problems. The only thing the test showed was that I was low in vitamin D. And,
so did you go to a doctor and do those tests?
Yeah, I actually went to several doctors. So my gynecologist at that time did a bunch of tests just to check my fertility, and she confirmed I was fertile. She offered me some things to, increase fertility. I forget the name of that drug that they use that often causes twins.
Oh my goodness.
My mom was like, don't take it, you'll get triplets.
You're like, oh yeah, first kid. I'm just gonna go for twins.
Yeah. So I respectfully declined. Glad I did. But I had a feeling like, there must be something going on. And at the same time, I was also experiencing a crazy amount of fatigue and unexplained weight gain. And this was not long after I started working as a flight attendant. So I was still teaching the yoga, but I started working as a flight attendant in the meantime because Unfortunately, teaching yoga does not include health insurance.
Yeah.
And my husband and I both have family in other countries. So I thought that being a flight attendant was a great thing to have going on. And luckily, it's flexible. So it still allowed me to do the other things that I wanted to do. But one thing that did happen when I started flying is I had an unexplained weight gain, fatigue, and then it wasn't working with the trying to conceive. So I started looking a little deeper into it. My doctor had told me, well, you're a bit low in vitamin D, which at the time didn't really mean much to me. Now I know that's actually crucial. And she said I was a little deficient in vitamin D. Actually, I was really deficient in vitamin D, but I had no idea at that time. So,
Where do and I'm where do you find vitamin D?
so vitamin D is, or I should say, D3 is a critical hormone that our body needs, right?
Yeah.
We know that we can get it from the sun, but obviously we always have to be careful with the sun. However, we do need some sunlight each day, around 15 minutes ideally. But you can also take it as a supplement. There's also some foods that increase vitamin D, but it's a really critical hormone. We call it a vitamin, but it's actually a hormone,
Yeah.
and it governs so many things in the body: metabolism, mood, fertility, um,
Oh,
yeah, your
so
weight.
metabolism. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it's very, very important. It also has a lot to do with your immune system. One thing we found during the COVID times, during the height of the pandemic, is that people who were very low in vitamin D3 actually were more susceptible to getting severe COVID. And one thing they were doing when people were hospitalized is that they were giving them IVs with high amounts of vitamin D3 and zinc, because those tended to be people who had critically low levels. So it's actually really, really important. And the standard labs that, conventional doctors have is, they, in the past, they tended to be cautious because they didn't want people going too high in vitamin D3, because, you don't want it to be crazy high. There are limits to it. However, honestly, for most people, they're so far from that number. It's really not a huge concern. It's actually, we should be more concerned at the deficiency, because it's really an epidemic of low vitamin D. And that's something I constantly see with my health coaching clients. Um, but so the vitamin D actually, in my case, was a sign of an autoimmune condition, because I had an incredibly low number. It was like a 20, which is very, very low, like
Yeah, but how
optimal.
did you find out? Like, you said your doctor was like, "Oh, it's, like, kind of
Oh, yeah.
low." How did you get to the point where you realized that that actually was the issue?
Oh, it took a while. It really didn't mean anything to me at that point. And I had heard that acupuncture was helpful if you were trying to conceive. So I was like, well, let me try acupuncture. My insurance at the airline covered it. So I was really lucky that the doctor that I found in my area at the time, he was not only an acupuncturist, which is already amazing, but he was also a naturopathic doctor and quite knowledgeable. And I'm incredibly grateful to him. So I went to him and I told him, I want to conceive and it's not happening. And, can you give me acupuncture for it? And he was like, well, let's talk a little more first. Tell me what else is going on. I was like, well, I have been like really, really tired. Like, no matter how much I sleep, I'm just so tired. And, I had this unexplained weight gain and I don't know why. And I have these bags under my eyes that I never used to have. And he's like, this all sounds to me like thyroid issues. And I remembered that I had had my thyroid checked and it had come out normal. So I told him that. I was like, yeah, but they checked my thyroid and it's fine. And he's like, yeah, that's what they always say.
Oh.
Yeah. I was like, what do you mean? And he is like, the standard thyroid tests, they just test the TSH. So that's the number that, yes, if you have a severe thyroid issue, it will show up in your TSH. But your TSH can be normal because your thyroid has not yet been destroyed, but you're already having symptoms. So there is a very common thyroid autoimmune condition, which I have, called Hashimoto's, where the thyroid attacks itself.
Wow.
And yeah, and it will eventually show up in your TSH, but it takes a really long time. Like by that time, your condition is already quite severe. So we don't.
So that's like why you had already started being tired, gaining weight, and
Exactly. And
yeah.
having fertility issues because, I was already experiencing symptoms of Hashimoto's, but it wasn't severe enough to have partially destroyed my thyroid, that's when it would show up in the TSH. So he told me what test to get. He said, I'm a naturopathic doctor. I can't prescribe tests for you, but I can tell you what to ask your doctor for. And he's like, listen, you're probably going to have to insist because they've already checked it. They're probably going to tell you, oh, it's fine. Why should I? And that's what the insurance wants them to do. And, in all fairness, the average doctor is not that knowledgeable about these issues, especially if they're not an endocrinologist.
They have like the umbrella knowledge. But
Exactly.
also, like, you have to be an advocate for yourself, and I'm
Absolutely.
hearing that more and more people saying, like, "And I just really had to advocate for myself because I knew that this wasn't right, no matter what they were telling me, this wasn't right."
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, I remember when I had told my doctor about the fatigue and the weight gain, she was like, "Well, maybe you're depressed." And I was like, "Well, I'm gonna be depressed if I don't figure this out."
Yeah.
But so this naturopathic doctor, he was amazing. He told me to test the thyroid antibodies because that's what shows the presence of Hashimoto's. And he said, listen, you're going to have to insist, just tell her it runs in your family, because she's going to need a reason to give the insurance since your thyroid test came out normal. So that's what I did, just as he said. She said, why should I? Your thyroid's normal. You're fine. You're fine. And I said, listen, this runs in my family. Please, I really need you to just test the thyroid antibodies. So she was like, fine, if it'll make you feel better. And then a couple days later, I got a call from her and she was like, I don't know what to tell you. Your test came out positive. I really wasn't expecting that. She's like, I don't know what to advise you. I really recommend you see an endocrinologist. I hope it
I'm
gets better.
sorry for
No, there
not
was no I'm sorry. But there was a lot of shock. So now I had this knowledge. So I went back to the naturopathic doctor and he's like, okay, that's exactly what I thought was going to happen. So he's like, now we need to find you a really good endocrinologist because unfortunately, not all endocrinologists are amazing. And there is a medication that the average endocrinologist prefers to prescribe for thyroid issues, which is called Synthroid. And in all fairness, for some people it works. It's a synthetic thyroid hormone. But for the average person with Hashimoto's, who is a highly sensitive person, is one thing about an autoimmune, you are very sensitive. So especially with an autoimmune thyroid condition. So what works better for most people is a natural thyroid hormone, like actually made from real thyroid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, shouldn't we
So
be doing natural things in our life
yeah,
instead of
I
just
mean,
all the synthetic chemical fake stuff? Like,
yeah, you would think so. And it's shocking, but the average endocrinologist does not like to prescribe natural thyroid hormone. They consider it to be much more complicated, harder to control. So the with natural thyroid hormone, sometimes you don't know the exact amount. There can be different concentrations depending on the animal. Like usually it's made from desiccated, from dried pig thyroid.
oh,
So, some pig thyroid might be a little stronger than others, but honestly, it really does even out if you have a good doctor who knows how to prescribe it. but the average doctor doesn't want to deal with it. So they prefer the synthetic thyroid hormone, which it's easier to control. They just, they don't have to do any math, because you have to do a little bit of math with the natural one. But, so they like it better. So you have to actually search and call around for an endocrinologist who is willing to prescribe natural thyroid hormone. But the fact is, studies show that people with thyroid disorders do have a way better track record with the natural thyroid hormone. And I had done my research. I love to research. So I had done my research, and I felt very confident with this, because it wasn't only that the naturopathic doctor told me this. I did my own research, and I saw consistently people were constantly saying that they had better results with the natural one. So I called around. A lot of the endocrinologists who prescribed the natural thyroid did not take insurance. So it took a lot of calling around to find one that took insurance and was willing to prescribe it. So luckily I did find someone. He had a very long waiting list, but
Yeah.
I was able to get on the thyroid hormone. I started doing a lot of research. The naturopathic doctor, his name is Dr. Saltpaw, by the way. If anyone's in New York, he's amazing. And
Oh, so all of this was when you were living in New
was
York.
still in New York. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I started doing more research. Dr. Saltpaw had recommended a book by it's an amazing book. It's by Dr. Isabella Wentz. She herself has Hashimoto's, and she wrote in detail. It's called Finding the Root Cause. And she talks about not only the importance of taking medication, she also advocates taking a natural thyroid medication. The one that I take is called Armour Thyroid, which is one of the more common ones. And she also advocates for lifestyle changes. So like with any autoimmune condition, medication, yes, it's great. It's helpful for sure, but you also need to make real lifestyle changes if you want optimal health.
I mean, I feel like that's the answer to so many of these issues that people are going to their doctors with. But
Yeah.
is that ever the feedback that doctors are giving? I mean, I hope that it's starting to change now, but yeah, like fix your lifestyle
Yeah.
first before you start pushing all the pills and everything, in my
I
opinion.
know. I would hope so. I think it just depends on the doctor. There are doctors who, they learned something in medical school, maybe, 20 years ago, and that's, they're not changing their minds from that, and maybe that person who taught it to them learned that 20 years ago from some outdated something or another. So it depends whether or not it's a doctor willing to do constant research and to have somewhat of an open mind. I think we're starting to realize that our conventional Western medicine is not necessarily the only answer, that Eastern medicine also has a lot to teach us, and that we can also benefit a lot from herbs and not just constant medications. And I'm not anti-medication by any means. I mean, I think antibiotics are a miracle. I think they're overused, but I think that, when used properly, they can be a wonderful thing.
I
But
agree
we
with
have to
you.
be judicious.
Yes. Yep. Yep. Yeah. So after you figured out everything, how long or how soon did you end up conceiving?
Oh my God, within a month.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, like it was really, really fast. I was amazed. I got on the thyroid medication, Armour Thyroid. I immediately went on a gluten-free diet, which was really hard for me at first. Just as soon as I read that I needed to go on a gluten-free diet, I think my immediate reaction was like, ah, damn it.
You don't realize how much gluten you're eating until
Yeah.
you go gluten-free, because my
Yeah.
husband had to go gluten-free for his migraines, and I was like, "All right, like, I'll do it with you. I'll support you." And I'm like, "Damn, I eat a lot of gluten every day."
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I've always been like, pizza is my favorite food. So I was like, are you kidding me? I will say it's gotten a lot easier nowadays to eat gluten-free than it was when I first started doing it. And but it's kind of taught me how to be creative with it. Like I've fortunately always loved to cook. So what I started doing is learning how to make my favorite foods, but a healthier gluten-free version. So you can still have the pizza, it just has to be in a little bit of a different form. And so my whole philosophy is not feeling deprived. If I'm just on some kind of a strict diet where I'm eating only salads and green juices, I'm going to be miserable. And I love salads and green juices, but I don't want to only eat that. I want the full life experience. I want to enjoy everything. So I learned how to be more creative with things and how to do things in a way that would support my health but wouldn't make me miserable, and that I could actually stick to. Because if I was going to go on a strict gluten-free diet and then just deprive myself of all the things that I want, then honestly it was not going to be sustainable. I knew myself. you know?
Well, that's like any of these diets people do to lose weight. It's not a
It's not
life
sustainable.
back. It's not a
Yeah,
lifestyle change.
yeah,
So you're gonna lose weight for what? A month, 2 months, and then
right.
you're just gonna go back because you didn't change the root of everything.
Yeah, like the Ozempic craze. I
Yeah.
had a client who was just asking me, "Should I try it?" I was like, "No." Unless you're prepared to like be on it for life, do not do it
Yeah, and why
because
would
it
you
will,
wanna do
yeah,
that?
it will ruin your metabolism, and then you will have to take it forever. Like it's not, as soon as you get off of it, it will come back with a vengeance. So, yeah.
So, was your journey to getting pregnant what got you into, being a certified health coach, and what gave you the idea to start a YouTube channel?
Yes, in the long run, yes. So getting pregnant was really like you would think it would be just wanting to feel better because I was feeling pretty miserable at the point when I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's. But I think we have in our head that like it's kind of okay not to feel well. Like it's you sort of get used to it, right? Like, you see people with chronic pain and they get used to the pain. So it's not that they're not miserable with it, they are, but you get used to it and you sort of accept it. And so for me, my desire to get pregnant kind of also made me realize how important it was for me to feel better because I started feeling so much better once I started making the changes. And then you get addicted to that good feeling. Once I saw what it was to feel really well and really good, I did not want to ever let that go. So, once I had my daughter, obviously with a young child, it becomes harder to take care of yourself at the same level that you were before having a child. You have to make adjustments. You have to learn to do things quicker. I couldn't spend all day cooking. I didn't have like endless amounts of time in ahead of me. So I had to learn to make things easier and faster, and that's where Busy and Healthy ended up coming about because I was really busy. Still
There's
am.
no one busier than a mom that's got her own business or a mom that
Yeah.
is working.
Yeah. So, and I had to learn to do things on the fly, so whereas I would have like, hours to cook before, now I have like 20 minutes to throw something together, and as a flight attendant also, it becomes really difficult to eat healthy when you're flying. Plain food has a lot of preservatives, so I really avoid it. There's tons of processed food available, but getting constant like fresh healthy food is not easy, so I had to learn how to also like throw together something healthy that could travel well with me. So
So once you were doing this, was it your idea to start a YouTube about it, or were family and friends like, "Oh my goodness, like you've got such great idea, you should share it with people?"
I think it was my idea. It was like a kind of a slow evolution. So it really started during the pandemic. And honestly, I first just started with yoga videos. So, especially in the beginning of the pandemic, people were like really depressed and freaking out and they were anxious. And I was like, well, let me see if I can contribute something positive. And honestly, I had no intention of like having a YouTube channel and like keeping it going. I was just like, oh, let me just do a few videos that can, inspire people. And, I had a lot of friends that were in New York. At this point, I was in Miami. And, like I was like, hey, do this yoga video, you'll feel better. So, and I was surprised how many people were watching it, like I didn't really know what to expect. And so people were watching my videos and they would say like, oh, I really like the way you teach. And then I kind of put it on the back burner, and I was just I got certified as a health coach, and I was just, talking to people one on one. And then I kept kind of getting the same questions over and over again, like one thing that I tell people to do is like eat quinoa, because if you're a busy person and you just need to have things on hand that you can grab quickly, quinoa, you can make a huge batch of it in the rice maker. You have it on hand, you can mix it with things. So I would tell people, oh, make quinoa, and they would say, well, how do I do that? I would say, oh, well, you do this and you do that and you do that. And I was like explaining myself over and over again. And then I would fly with people and they would, see that I'm a health coach, or they would see me eating healthy food and they would say like, oh, how did you make that? How did you do that? So it was like, maybe I should just make videos on all these things people keep asking me about. And then I can just say, oh, here's a video.
Yeah, you don't have to repeat yourself over and over again. You just send them the link.
Exactly. So that's really what I started doing, like making videos based on things that people kept asking me. But then along the way, I realized I actually really enjoyed YouTube a lot. I'm also an actor. I'm pretty comfortable on camera. I think I'm maybe a filmmaker somehow. There's a filmmaker inside me. So, I liked the idea that I could combine something I'm passionate about which is wellness, along with, being on camera and doing something with film. And I try to make my videos a little bit more interesting, a little more entertaining. So it's not just like, this is how you make quinoa,
Yeah. So it was 4 years ago when you started, and at that time your daughter would have been 3. So what was it like being a health coach and trying to film videos and being in a pandemic with a 3-year-old?
Well, it was interesting. I mean, I will say the benefits to the pandemic were that you sort of, even though it was a little stressful that your kid is like at home all the time because there's no daycare, no school, you also sort of have like what feels like endless stretches of time, that like, I think, time poverty is such a real issue nowadays. We're all busy and running and, but like, it was like a pause, and in that pause, I actually found a lot of creativity. So I actually did a lot during the pandemic. So I was starting to experiment with the YouTube videos, and I was even doing like little movies on my iPhone. And, I started creating what would later be a film that I did. So it was stressful on one hand, because my daughter is not the kid who likes to be, indoors and sitting quietly. She's like a little hurricane. She's got like a lot of energy. She wants to be active. She wants to be out. My husband and I switched off a lot. We were taking turns doing our Zooms, but there were definitely good spots to it. I mean, I will say, I still think Zoom is the most amazing thing. That's really where I see my clients, for health coaching and, for meetings, for things like this. I mean, you can't beat it. It does make life a lot easier. So it was challenging, but I think it was also a really important time in some ways. And, I was cooking more than ever.
Experimenting with so many recipes,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. It was, I think a lot of people during the pandemic were learning to bake bread, right? Like, that
Yes.
was the big thing. That
I
was
did
interesting.
not. Yeah, I did not. What
Yeah.
what's your favorite recipe that you give or you suggest to your clients?
Well, so quinoa is a
I
big
would,
one.
yeah, I guess other than quinoa.
Other than quinoa, I guess it depends. There's a new video I'm working on now. For those who are meat eaters, it's a chicken dish that it's my husband's Peruvian, and we do like a lot of Peruvian inspired food in the house. So there's a recipe that I kind of sort of put together based on both Peruvian food and a Thai dish I like. And it's like it's a very easy chicken dish to throw together, but it has a killer sauce. And I use this ingredient. It's called ajipanca. It's a Peruvian red pepper paste. It's not spicy. It sounds like it's going to be spicy. It's not really. It's very, very, like, has a tiny bit of a kick, and that's it. And I use it with coconut milk. And that's a video that should be out later this month. I still
I'm
have
watching that video because everyone that I know, that everyone that knows me knows that I am obsessed with chicken. So I just
Yeah.
can't help, like, I can't help myself. Like, if we go to a restaurant, I might get a burger, but 9 times out of 10, I end up with some sort of chicken dish. And if it's up to me to make dinner in the house, I'm most likely going to make chicken and rice. I like all through college, it was just chicken and rice.
Nice. Well, you'll like this one. I mean, technically you could make it with other things, but I've only ever done it with chicken. But I think it could be veganized as well with tofu. Yeah, and it's honestly it's easy. Like when you taste it, it tastes like you spent hours on it, and it's like 20 minutes. So
At this point, where do you get a lot of your clients for your health coaching business? Is it people that reach out to you from watching YouTube?
Some people do, some of it is people that like they knew me from somewhere else and someone recommended them. Sometimes it's other flight attendants, because it can be really difficult to maintain a healthy lifestyle when you're flying full time. I'm flying part time, but it gets a lot more difficult when you're flying more.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I can imagine you're either eating the stuff on the plane or stuff in airports. And if you stay overnight in places, then you're like going out to eat at restaurants, and that's not always healthy. So
Yeah, it gets tricky because, the nature of flying can be very unpredictable. You have constant delays, or, you think you're going somewhere, you get diverted and you go somewhere else, or the delay was so long that, they send you somewhere else. I mean, it can be really, really unpredictable. And if, it gets hard, like, because even if you pack your own food, there's only so long it can stay fresh. So it can be super challenging.
yeah, I didn't even really think about all those things that could happen. Um, so balancing being a mom and being an entrepreneur is not always smooth sailing. What do you think is stressful about trying to manage both roles?
I think, well, for me personally, I struggle with always feeling like I come up short in one area or another. So, days where I'm like, I'm killing it with business and I'm on top of everything. I'm like, am I being a bad mom? Am I not giving her enough attention today? And then other days where I'm like, the best mom, and I feel like I did a good job and I was there for my kid and she got all her needs met. I'm like, oh, I haven't done anything with my business today. So, I think it's that constant push and pull. And I think a lot of moms have that kind of mommy guilt. There's a great Shonda Rhimes quote. I'm a huge Shonda Rhimes fan. And she said, I'm going to misquote her, but she said, on some days I'm a great writer. Some days I'm a great mom. Rarely am I both.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's that kind of sums it up.
Yeah, I agree with that. So, as entrepreneur moms, we experience motherhood differently than a 9 to 5 mom or a strictly stay at home mom. What do you think is the best thing about being an entrepreneur mom?
I think the flexibility is amazing, honestly, and the the sense that you're creating something, I mean, there's nothing wrong with, having a 9 to 5 job if it's something that you enjoy, and the stability of a regular paycheck is great.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, being able to create something that is yours, it's pretty exciting. And you're creating it on your own terms. And then you don't have a boss that's saying, like, no, you can't go to your kids' field trip, or you can't, take this vacation with your family because, you don't have that day off. It gives you another kind of freedom. I mean, even though I travel for work and I have my business and I'm busy, I feel like I actually see my kid more than the average person with a 9 to 5 job, because, I know myself. If I was just working 9 to 5 every day, at the end of the day, I'm just going to want to come home and do nothing.
Yeah.
I would be spent. And I mean, I know that there's amazing moms out there who they're handling that better than I would, and they're able to do it. But for me personally, that would be very challenging. I actually, though I'm busy and I'm juggling a lot of things, I actually find this easier.
I mean, you brought up two great points. The first one being that well, it was the second one you brought up, that you get more time with your kid. And that's the reason I switched to real estate, because I knew that I was going to get more time with my child instead of picking her up from daycare at 5 and then her going to bed in 3 hours. And then the other point you brought up was flexibility. And like, my husband and I were both entrepreneurs, and this week we were discussing, like, all right, Thursday night, should we just pack up the kids and go to Watkins Glen in New York for the
Oh, cool.
weekend? And my siblings, I have 7 other siblings, and a
Wow.
lot yeah. One of them is on the team with me, the real estate team, and then the rest work 9 to 5 jobs. And for them, it's always like, when we're texting in the family group chat and want to do stuff, they're like, well, I only have this many vacation days left for the year.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, forget that.
Oh, it's such
Just,
a bummer, right? Like, you feel like
yeah.
you're going to miss out on life. Yeah.
Yeah, like, you're tied down to 10 vacation days a year, or you might get lucky and a holiday falls somewhere in the week where you squeak in another extra day. And I'm just, nah. I mean,
Yeah.
our parents had a business growing up, so some of my favorite memories were just my parents randomly being like, all right, tomorrow morning we're getting in the car and we're going to Niagara Falls.
Oh, I
So, like,
love that. That's, yeah, same. That's how I feel too. I love freedom. It's such a important thing for me. I don't want to feel like I have a boss saying, no, you can't do that. I was talking to someone the other day, and she had to, like, beg her boss to go to the mechanic. And he was like, you should handle this on your own time. And she's like, but he's not open on
I
weekends. You know?
don't even get me started on some of these businesses whose hours are like 10 to 4. Like,
Yeah. I'm
for
like,
all the other people that aren't entrepreneurs, how are they supposed to get
exactly.
there?
I'm like, it's fine for me, but how is everyone else doing that? Or doctors. But yeah, and I mean, totally. We're going to Spain at the end of this month with my daughter. Luckily, she's in a pretty flexible school. They were fine with it. But, like, I think it's really important to be able to have these kind of adventures and have some freedom in your life. So for me, it's that is a really awesome part of being an entrepreneur.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. All right. So we're going to pivot to our rapid fire 5 and 5, where everyone gets to know a little bit more about you personally. So to start, what does your ideal chill day look like?
Oh, ideal chill day. Let's see. Wake up late if
Yeah.
if my daughter lets me. um, let's see. Just, having a relaxed breakfast as a family. I'm a big gluten-free pancake girl, so I would probably make those.
I
Um,
do that once a week.
Yes, I love them. Um, you know, we love to take a walk, and there's an area around us called Coconut Grove. It's really beautiful. I actually made a vlog on that, and it's just beautiful walking around. It's by the water. We grabbing lunch together as a family. Um, you know, at some point in the day, doing some yoga, wherever it might fit. you know, Coming back early enough that there's plenty of time to put my daughter to bed, watch a movie with my husband. You know, the older I get, the less I want to run around and do like a billion things in one day. For me, less is more.
That's what I was just going to say. The perfect day for you sounds like something that's not rushed.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So what
Totally.
are you currently reading or listening to?
I am reading Outlander, the book Outlander. So I love this series. The series is, oh my God, so good. And then people kept telling me, well, if you love the series, you're going to love the book. And I do. It's really, really good. I'm not able to read it as consistently as I would like. It's like my guilty pleasure when I get a chance. I also have been listening on audiobook to Dr. Mark Hyman's Young Forever. I'm a huge fan of Dr. Mark Hyman. He's a functional medicine doctor, and I've pretty much read all of his books. And this one is specifically talking about, things that you can do now to slow the aging process ultimately. And, all that good stuff.
That sounds like something that would be important to read.
Yeah, it's really cool.
What is your favorite app or tool you use as an entrepreneur, a mom, or both?
My favorite app tool. I know this is supposed to be rapid fire, but
What do you find yourself using a lot, like daily almost?
Well, Zoom.
Yeah. And that's super beneficial to your business. So
yeah, I think right now I would say Zoom. I also use CapCut a lot with editing.
yeah, I like that tool. I like that one.
Yeah, it's a good one.
What is the song you blast the shit out of if entrepreneur mom life is too much for you that day?
Anything by Notorious B.I.G.
Oh, okay.
Like old school gangster rap.
That's awesome. And then my last question for you is, what's some advice you can give a struggling entrepreneur mom?
Be patient with yourself. It takes such a long time sometimes to get going. In the beginning, you're going to feel like nothing's working and you're going to want to give up, every other day. Just don't give up. Just keep going. If you have a message that you want to share with people, keep sharing that message. Consistently share that message. Don't give up. And the right people will start finding you little by little. It takes time.
Oh, yeah. That is a great piece of advice. So I want to thank you so much for taking the time to come on and share your story with all of the listeners today. If people wanted to reach out to you, what is the best way that they could get in touch with you?
So I have a website. It's yogabyamalia.com. And if you go to yogabyamalia.com/free guide, I also have a free guide. It's called the Healthy Habits Guide. And it's just an easy, quick guide for busy people, easy things that you can implement right away to feel better. You can contact me through my website. You can also, if you go to my YouTube channel, I'm always open to any questions. If you put a question in the comments, I will answer you.
Yay. I love free things. They're fun. Yeah. So hopefully our listeners hop on there and grab that freebie. And again, thank you so much for coming on. And I'm going to leave you all with a quote. Entrepreneurship is anything but easy, but you are anything but weak. I'll see you all next time.
Thank you for joining this episode of Badass Mother Hustler. If you loved this episode as much as we did, and it left you feeling inspired and empowered, give us a quick like and subscribe, and we'll invite you back to our next episode. And be sure to share us on your socials and visit our Instagram, Badass Mother Hustler Podcast. We'll see you next time.